Now we're going to actually combine our distributive property with our combining like terms. So two things to remember is that you're following your order of operations. So we would always begin with grouping, which in this case our grouping is also our multiplying, and then we would add or subtract. So that means we're going to distribute first, and then we're going to combine like terms. So looking over here at our example, we have 3x plus 2 times the quantity x minus 4. Since we need to eliminate this grouping here, we would need to multiply our positive 2 times our x minus 4. The 3x would kind of just hang out until the end when we would combine like terms down. So we're going to do a positive 2 times x, which is a positive 2x, and then a positive 2 times negative 4. A positive times a negative is a negative, and then 2 times 4 is 8. Then we would find our like terms. So in this case, our 3x and our positive 2x are the like terms we're looking for, which would give us 5x. And then we would bring down our constant, which is minus 8. Now again, the order doesn't matter. You could put negative 8 plus 5x, but 5x minus 8 is going to be a more correct answer in the future when order does matter. So if you can get to the habit now, that would only be helpful for you. All right, so let's look at a couple other expressions. So number 9, 12 minus 2 times the quantity 3x minus 5. Now, some students try to subtract 12 minus 2. You cannot do this. Remember, order of operations says that you multiply before you subtract. So I know it's tempting to say 12 minus 2 is 10 and then distribute 10 times 3x plus 5. But if you do that, it will be incorrect. So instead, we need to take care of this negative 2 times 3x plus 5. And please notice I kept the sign. That negative goes with the 2. All right, so we're going to bring down the 12, and we're going to do negative 2 times 3x, which is negative 6x. And then we're going to do negative 2 times a positive 5, which is a negative 10. Now we're going to take care of our like terms. So I have a 12 here, and I can combine that with my negative 2. So 12 minus 10, negative 10, is 2. And then negative 6x is on its own, so we're going to bring negative 6x down. Now, this answer is fine, 2 minus 6x. If it were me, I would write the x first, so negative 6x plus 2. Generally speaking, we like the constant to be at the end. But again, if you write it in the first way, I would not count that wrong at this point. In the future, it will become important, though. All right, so let's look at number 10. So we have 3x times the quantity 7 minus 2x plus 5x squared. So the first thing we want to take care of is this multiplication of 3x times this quantity. Get rid of the grouping symbols. So we'd have 3x times 7x, which is 21x, and then 3x times negative 2x. So 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, and if you remember, x times x is x squared. And then bring down the plus 5x squared. So then we need to combine our like terms. So we have 21x. It doesn't have any like terms. It's just kind of by itself there, 21x. And then we also have negative 6x squared plus 5x squared. So when we combine those two things, negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1x squared. Now, if you wrote this answer as your final answer, it would be correct. However, once again, I would change this around. I would write this as a negative, and I wouldn't even put the 1. I would just put negative x squared. You can put the 1. It's not wrong if you put the 1. We generally don't put the 1, but it's not going to be wrong if you do. And then plus 21x. Again, eventually in the future, order will matter, and we like the highest power first. So negative x squared plus 21x. All right, number 11. Now the only thing we have on this problem is distribution. So we're multiplying 6x times these 4 terms. Now there's 2 ways we can do this. We can go ahead and just go straight to distribution. You can multiply all 4 terms by 6x. Or you can realize that inside this parentheses, we can actually simplify some of these terms down. We have like terms. We have this 5 and this positive 3, and then we have the negative 4y and the negative 1y. If it were me, I would go ahead and simplify it first, but you can do it either way. You will end up with the same answer. So I'm going to simplify first, so 6x times 5 plus 3 is 8. And negative 4, and remember this is a negative 1y. Negative 4 plus negative 1 is negative 5y. Remember, anytime you're combining things, you're just adding them together. So now we need to distribute. So 6x times 8x is 48x. 6x times negative 5y. So this is a little tricky. 6 times negative 5 is negative 30. The key here is not to forget a variable. We have an x and we have a y. So all we have to do is write x and then y. And that's it. It's not x squared, it's not y squared, it's x and then y. Now we do typically put them in alphabetical order, so x and then y, but if you put yx, it is still correct. Now I do want to look and see if these are like terms, so I have 48x and 30xy. Because of the y, these are not like terms. Therefore, this is my final answer, 48x minus 30xy. All right, last one, number 12. 2 times the quantity 8 minus n minus the quantity 3n plus 4. So one thing to realize is that we have two sets of parentheses that we need to simplify. So the first one is 2 times the quantity 8 minus n. So we're going to take care of that distribution first. So we have 2 times 8, which is 16, and we have 2 times negative n, which is negative 2n. So that's just this first set of parentheses here that we've simplified down. Now, the next thing we have to do is we have to get rid of this parentheses on the 3n plus 4. Now, some students think that they can just go, oh, minus 3n plus 4, and that's not the case. We are distributing here, and in fact, the number we are distributing is an understood 1. So in front of this parenthesis here is actually a 1. We don't typically write him, but he's there because there's not a number. So we have to not just distribute the 1, but the negative 1, which means we have to do negative 1 times 3n and negative 1 times 4, which creates negative 3n minus 4. Now this is a very big deal. This is missed quite a bit because people will forget to distribute the negative to the 4. They'll put negative 3n, but they won't put minus 4. So now that we have our parentheses out of the way, we've distributed, we can now look and combine like terms. So starting with our 16, we would combine that with negative 4. So 16 minus 4 is 12. And then we would have negative 2n plus 3n, and negative 2 plus 3n is negative 5n. Now remember, we don't multiply the n's. We leave the n alone. We just do negative 2 and negative 3. We combine the coefficients, not the variables. So 12 minus 5n, which again I would rewrite as negative 5n plus 12. But either way, this is considered correct. And so there you have it. Okay, remember, when you're multiplying, you multiply the variables. N times n is n squared. When you're adding, we do not do that. So just a little side note over here. This is very, very important. N times n is n squared. N plus n is 2n. When you're adding, you add the coefficients. When you're multiplying, you end up having a higher power. So again, this is very, very important. Make yourself a note of this. Okay, this is probably the most confusing thing to students, is that when you're multiplying factors, n times n, it's going to make it a bigger power, n squared. When you're adding n plus n, it only affects the coefficient.